It's an RCA VR-275, and it's another Hitachi-made RCA model. I got this at a thrift store for $5 because the tape loading mechanism was completely jammed. This door was pushed in and actually off kilter on one side. Couldn't even see if there's a tape inside of it. They were wanting way more, and I brought it up and said, "This doesn't work. What can I have it for?" They said $5. It was probably still too much, but I like these weird old VCRs. And it has linear stereo with Dolby. So to repair this, the belt was completely shot, and somehow the loading mechanism got shifted. It thought a tape was in there, but it wasn't, and it was half in, half out. So I managed to line it all back up again. I didn't have a new belt, so I put just a belt I had kicking around that worked good enough in it, and got it enough to play a tape, and realized very quickly that there was a 60 hertz hum in the power supply. I was getting these sort of wavy black bars and humming sound going through the picture when it played, or even just at the blue screen right now. So I opened it up, and I'll show some photos on screen of what I found. One of the capacitors inside here had probably gone bad because it heated up so much that it made cold solder joints on both the terminals on the capacitor, so it was not even hooked up. I didn't have that capacitor value kicking around, so I put two in series of just whatever I had, and it seems to be working okay now. So I'll show that here with my test tape. You listen to that loading motor. Doesn't sound too healthy. This doesn't have auto tracking, so I do need to adjust it if it's off. But it will adjust, and it will get into sync. This TV's gonna buzz like it always does. I'll pause it here. So this is a 2-head VCR. What's interesting is it looks like the tracking artifacts are disappearing on the TV, but they're not. What's happening is they're flashing really fast on the screen, and the camera shutter is going in and out of sync with them. So what I'm seeing is just a rapid flashing, but what the camera's seeing is that every once in a while, it looks okay. But in real life, it doesn't. That's 2-head in SP mode. You can go and rewind. Quick look at the controls. There's not much on here. VCRs in this era started to put all their controls onto the remote. So power, stop, eject, rewind, play, fast forward, pause. There's auto program for the tuner. And then there's manual add and erase. But I believe you have to manually enter the channel in order to add or erase. Because right now, when I first plug it in, it will not change channel. But if I grab the remote from the VMT 400, I can enter a channel. But then when I go here, I can't change it. But if I go add, and I punch in another one, 09, go add, now I can go between them. So other than auto program, when you first plug this thing in, you would have to go through every channel that you received manually, punching it in on the remote, and then hitting add. The add and erase also control the tracking, which I believe is manual on this. It doesn't seem to do any auto tracking adjustment. Tape speed. This one also has LP, which is nice. And then your record button, which also does XPR. So I'm not sure how that works. Maybe you hit record, then if you hit it again, it will allow you to set the time for the express record. And of course, I just hit record there on a tape that has the tab missing, so it ejected it. We can try a tape recorded in a different speed, SLP. How about the 1994 US Open? Now, I just tried this out, and much to my surprise, it's now playing SLP tapes perfectly. So that problem I had before, see, I'll go here, tracking's obviously manual, but I can adjust it, and I can get the picture clean, which wouldn't happen before on this. So now I'm starting to wonder, is this something in the power supply that's starting to reform? Is this a belt that over time has worked out whatever defect it has in it? I don't know, but it seems to be playing very nicely now.
Does Ed know? Of course. Oh, what do you want?
A little bit of jitter on the screen.
Well, I've always dreamed of having a little girl.
What if it's a boy? Simple operation.
You can do some, let's see, pause. And fast forward. And this one's new enough where you just press the scan button once to start, and then just press play to stop. And rewind scan. Seems to be working really nice now. Now that I have this remote from the VMT400, I should be able to get into the menu. And I can. And it looks almost the same as the VMT400, just with a blue background instead of black. So I can go and set the clock. Exactly the same. Push end to program. Well, again, I don't have an end button, but if I press the program button again, there we go. Takes me out, program again. And now my clock is set, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's been about a week and I had one last thing I wanted to show, and that was I wanted to record a stereo program on here and then play it back with the linear stereo. The problem is, all I have is this little digital tuner box, but this doesn't output stereo on the RF output. So the only way I can do that is using the line in on the VCR, but I don't have the remote for it. And the remote for the VMT400 didn't have a line in button. So went to a thrift store, managed to find this big, huge RCA TV remote from the early 90s. This is when RCA actually had two sets of remote codes for VCRs, VCR 1 and 2. And with some of their higher end VCRs, you could go into the menu on one of them and set it to respond to VCR 2 codes. So this isn't universal on these. I think you can reprogram these. Yeah, actually I think it is universal. But by default, these are VCR 1 and VCR 2. Anyway, I started to think, RCA TVs from around the same era as this VCR, when you tuned in one of the inputs on the back, they were channel 91, channel 92, channel 93, and so on. So I thought, oh, okay, what if I punch in 9-1? So you can see I'm on the line in right now. And if I go and change a channel, say I go to like 22. So now I'm on channel 22. And if I go and punch in 9-1, it goes to the line in. So perfect. I didn't really need to buy this remote. It's pretty neat for 50 cents, but I guess I didn't really need it. Anyway, so once I've got that started, now I'm able to hook the cable box up to it. Oh, and I found a better TV than that other one. The other one needs a lot of servicing, so I picked up this little Emerson. Same thrift store run, actually. Came with the remotes, made in 1990. It has a line in on it, which is nice, even though I'm not using it right now. decent picture. It looks washed out on the video. It looks kind of red and blue, but the color is a lot better than this camera's making it look. I've got a blank tape inside here, so I'm going to record some stuff on SLP, LP, and SP. I'll try doing it with and without Dolby turned on, and we'll see the results. Quick side note, I just discovered something pretty awesome. I'm pressing the buttons on here to control the VCR, and I noticed that the IR receiver is responding on this little RCA cable box or digital tuner box, and I thought, oh, okay, well, by default this will have an RCA program on here. I wonder if this would actually work. And it does. This remote from the early 90s will control my probably 2012 digital tuner box, which is great because I don't have the remote for this. So now I can manually punch in channels if I want to.
Monday on Global. Get Black Friday prices now this weekend at the Brick. 5-piece dining set that extends to 96 inches, just $9.99. Or the 17 cubic foot counter depth stainless steel fridge, only $7.99. Black Friday prices now at the Brick, saving you more.
There it is. Look at this. Some nice mushroom pasta. That's in a restaurant, right? Oh, now it's in your house. You're probably thinking, how'd I get there? It was DoorDash.
Your food. It's here.
We bring food to your house. It's simple. You can eat it right there on your couch, or by a warm fire, in your bed. I don't know. Whatever. It's your food now. So get the app, get the food. There's no delivery fee on your first order. So, what do you want?
Again. Don't quit. Breathe. Move. Again. Change your attitude. Change your shape.
When the whirlwind hits your home, hit back with the powerful suction. Goodbye, whirlwind.
Dreaming of long hair? Stop cutting. Dream Length No Haircut Cream by L'Oreal. Enriched with keratin and castor oil, our system repairs length and seals split ends to save you last 3 centimeters. Dream longer with Dream Length by L'Oreal Paris.
A single ancestry record can unlock a whole new chapter of your story. This holiday, give the gift of discovery at ancestry.ca.
I wasn't sure the snow would fall. I wanted sand. Cars to call. Picked up the phone. No one was there. And I felt so unaware of what matters most.
To conclude, this was not a good VCR to use as a test for linear stereo. With or without Dolby, it sounded terrible. And as far as I can tell, that audio was not stereo. Even though I double checked with headphones that those commercials were in stereo, you could hear the separation. But playing it back, it sounded mono, and without Dolby, you only have 1 channel. With Dolby, you have 2 channels, but it almost sounds like they're being mixed improperly. So there's definitely something wrong with the audio circuitry on here.